When the world is just too much, turn it off and turn on positive, encouraging K-Love.
I'm gonna praise.
World off. K-Love on.
K-Love is sunshine for my soul.
I love K-Love.
Listen now on your radio, online, or on the free K-Love app.
K-Love makes me feel so good.
Positive, encouraging K-Love.
Life Audio.
The Bible Study Podcast, episode 974. Today, the Bible Study Podcast continues the study of the book of Exodus with chapter 14. Chapter 14 is going to be where Egypt comes after Israel. But before we get to that, we'll have a word from this sponsor.
When someone receives a Bible in a language they can understand, everything can begin to change. A child learns about Jesus. A family gathers to pray. A local believer gains confidence to lead. And a church takes root. That's the impact of God's Word. Bible League International is helping place Bibles where they're needed most. Watch a short video and see firsthand the difference a Bible can make. Text CHANGE to 94878. That's CHANGE to 94878.
Exodus 14. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Tell the Israelites to turn back and encamp near Pi Haithroth, between Migdal and the sea. They are to encamp by the sea directly opposite Baal Zephon. Pharaoh will think the Israelites are wandering around the land in confusion, hemmed in by the desert, and I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue them. But I will gain glory for myself through Pharaoh and all his army, and the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord." So the Israelites did this. When the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, Pharaoh and his officials changed their minds about them and said, "What have we done? We have let the Israelites go and have lost their services." So he had his chariot made ready and took his army with him. He took 600 of the best chariots along with all the other chariots of Egypt, with officers over all of them. The Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, so that he pursued the Israelites, who were marching out boldly. The Egyptians, all Pharaoh's horses and chariots and horsemen and troops, pursued the Israelites and overtook them as they camped by the sea near Pi Hahiroth, opposite Baal Zephon. As Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up, and there were the Egyptians, marching after them. They were terrified and cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, "Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? Didn't we say to you in Egypt, 'Leave us alone, let us serve the Egyptians'? It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert." So this is not the last time the people will say, "Why did you bring us here to die?" But it is the first time. And you can see why they say that. They look back and they see Pharaoh and his army, and they have never fought anyone. They have been slaves, and so this looks like their destruction. And so they panic, they lose their faith very quickly, and blame Moses. "Why didn't you just leave us in Egypt?" I think of the old Keith Green song, "So You Want to Get Out of Egypt," which talks about the grumbling of the people of Israel on this journey to the promised land. But were there not enough graves in Egypt? That is where their hope is right now. Their hope is pretty low at this point. But God has already told Moses, "I'm doing this on purpose." Moses answered the people, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to move on. Raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea to divide the waters so that the Israelites can go through the sea on dry ground. I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they will go in after them, and I will gain glory through Pharaoh and all his army, through his chariots and his horsemen. The Egyptians will know that I am the Lord when I gain glory through Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen." Then the angel of God, who had been traveling in front of Israel's army, withdrew and went behind them. The pillar of cloud also moved from in front and stood behind them, coming between the armies of Egypt and Israel. Throughout the night, the cloud brought darkness to the one side and light to the other side, so neither went near the other all night long. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and all that night the Lord drove the sea back with a strong east wind and turned it into dry land. The waters were divided, and the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground, with a wall of water on their right and on their left. So this happens a little differently in the actual book version than it happens in the Cecil B. DeMille movie version with Charlton Heston, where he stretches out his hand and the sea immediately parts. Instead, it's talking about a wind that is blowing these waters back all night long, and that God is holding off the Egyptians with this pillar of cloud, this pillar of fire, until the way is paved and they now have a path. And so they walk through this wall of water on their right and on their left. And this had to be pretty weird. This had to be scary and great and all of those things. And what would you know what to think if you were the Israelites? You can see that God is literally sheltering you from the Egyptians with this cloud that you already have come to understand is the mark of his presence. And so Moses says there's a way out, a way you didn't see, right? A way that was not obvious to you. God has built a way through where your faith didn't find one. Then the Egyptians pursued them, and all Pharaoh's horses and chariots and horsemen followed them into the sea. During the last watch of the night, the Lord looked down from the pillar of fire and cloud at the Egyptian army and threw it into confusion. He jammed the wheels of their chariots so they had difficulty driving. And the Egyptians said, "Let's get away from the Israelites. The Lord is fighting for them against Egypt." So in the version that I'm used to in the films here, you see the Lord just closes things up. But first, what happens here in the actual book version is they're thrown into confusion. Their chariots stop working as they're here in the middle between this wall of water on their left and a wall of water on their right. And they're panicking, and they're already fleeing, saying, "This is a bad idea. We shouldn't have done this. The Lord is fighting for these people." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea so that the waters may flow back over the Egyptians and their chariots and horsemen." Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and at daybreak the sea went back into its place. The Egyptians were fleeing toward it, and the Lord swept them into the sea. The water flowed back and covered the chariots and horsemen, the entire army of Pharaoh that had followed the Israelites into the sea. Not one of them survived. But the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground, with a wall of water on their right and on their left. That day the Lord saved Israel from the hands of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians lying dead on the shore. And when the Israelites saw the mighty hand of the Lord displayed against the Egyptians, the people feared the Lord and put their trust in him and in Moses, his servant. You get to that last sentence here that they finally put their trust in him and in Moses, your servant, and you think, well, it's about time. But unfortunately, that trust won't last forever. But we've got a victory right now. We're going to celebrate the victory. We're going to celebrate the victory next week. But with that, we're going to end this episode of the Bible Study Podcast. If you have any questions, send an email to chris2x@gmail.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at thebiblestudypodcast.com. And as always, thanks so much for listening.
I want to take just a second to thank the team at Life Audio for their partnership with us on this podcast. If you go to lifeaudio.com, you'll find dozens of other faith-centered podcasts in their network. They've got shows about prayer, Bible study, parenting, and more.
I'm best-selling author John Seidel, and I'm the Christian who became an alcoholic, not the other way around. Through the power of Jesus, I got sober, and now I'm sharing both my story and the stories of others just like me, along with helpful interviews from trauma, faith, and addiction recovery experts. If you're a fan of messy sanctification and powerful stories, join me on the Confessions of a Christian Alcoholic podcast on Life Audio or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Let's get radically vulnerable.
The Historical Jesus Podcast is the sweeping saga of the life and times of Galilean Jesus of Nazareth, as well as the faith, religion, and church founded to honor and disseminate his acts and teachings. Join me, Mark Vinette, on this fascinating journey through time, exploring the many great works of Christian theology, literature, architecture, music, and art inspired by the words and deeds of Jesus Christ.